Have you have you ever visited a hospital and spent more than 30 minutes waiting to obtain a hospital card? After obtaining the card, wait another 30 minutes to see a doctor. How did these waits make you feel? What if I told you you could consult your doctor on your mobile device for non-life-threatening conditions anytime, anywhere? Wouldn't that be great? How, you ask? By registering at www.CompleteCare.com. This registration is free and simple. You not only get to consult a doctor on your mobile device, but can book appointments to see your doctor at the hospital. Better still, you could have your doctor visit you at home. Isn't that wonderful? Enter your details here and experience the easiest and fastest access to a doctor or hospital. Do you know that this reduces the cost of you consulting medical experts and the logistics of doing so by 30 to 70%? Do you know that this reduces the time you spend in hospital to the barest minimum and gives you time to attend to other things? Do you know that you can pay online when you need medical care and enjoy the best of medical care from qualified medical doctors from anywhere and anytime? Hurry now and register and benefit from cutting-edge healthcare revolution in Nigeria.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to Complete Care's webinar series, which is to celebrate the World Sickle Cell Day 2023 with the theme Breaking the Chain. So the webinar aims to educate us on sickle cell diseases, bringing to light all that is there to know. And through the webinar this evening, we intend to break the chain of continuance by ensuring that our participants who are carriers and savvy enough to have your own babies to carry. So thank you for joining us. Welcome to our guests. Welcome to the warriors and welcome to our viewers. Thank you for joining us this evening. So this webinar this evening was brought to us by KompleteCare. KompleteCare is a digital health marketplace that connects patients with doctors and other healthcare professionals within the shortest time possible. KompleteCare is your sure health blog for convenient, affordable, and quality healthcare. Thank you very much for joining. Welcome, Dr. Aduke Adeosun. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me around.
All right, so Dr. Aduke Adeosun is an expert in sickle cell diseases. So she's our guest speaker for today, and she'll be enlightening us on what sickle cell disease is about. So we'll be starting right away, and I'll be asking our guest speaker some questions. So the first question I'll be asking Dr. Adeosun this evening is to tell us what sickle cell disease is, please.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Abisola. Um, First, I'm Dr. Adeosun Lydia Aduke. I'm a senior registrar in Department of Hematology, National Hospital. So today, June 19th, as is always done every year, marks the Sickle Cell Awareness Day. And through the Complete Care, the theme for Complete Care Zone is breaking the chain. And what is sickle cell disease? Sickle cell disease is a group of inherited disease, or I would say red blood cell disease, that affects the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the protein that carries oxygen in our red blood cells to every other part of our body. So sickle cell disease is inherited, it's not an acquired disease. Inherited in the sense that a warrior, I think I'll be using that word a
Warrior.
lot for uh, people with sickle cell. A warrior inherits one of the gene from the father and another from the mother, especially if they are sickle cell carrier or those that have the sickle cell trait. So they now become sickle cell anemic patients, meaning HBSS. They have two hemoglobin S. In red blood cells, the hemoglobin we have is the hemoglobin A. But in sickle cell disease, they inherit the hemoglobin S from both parents. So instead of having hemoglobin AA, they now tend to have hemoglobin SS. For those that are carrier, or those that we say they have the sickle cell trait, is either they inherit hemoglobin A from one parent and hemoglobin S from another parent, making them to have hemoglobin AS. So in short, is an inherited uh, disease, is not an acquired disease.
All right. Thank you so much for the extensive explanation of what sickle cell disease is. So, what is the significance of the World Sickle Cell Day and the tag of this webinar, Breaking the Chain?
Okay. The significance of the World Sickle Cell Day mainly is to raise awareness about this condition, to raise awareness about sickle cell disease, its impacts on individuals that are involved, impacts on the family of the individual, and impact on the community as a whole. And also, the is to increase public knowledge about sickle cell disease. We need to enlighten the public about this disease condition, and for also the public and the community to understand what sickle cell disease is. By understanding, they will be able to know how the impact of this disease is on individuals and even the community. And also, the significance of this World Sickle Cell Day again is for the communities and even the caregiver, the family members, to understand the challenges that these are warriors they experience. You understand, especially our warriors, the challenges, the pain psychologically and on all aspects that they go through when they have this disease or when they have their crisis coming up. So mainly that is the significance of this awareness. And also when we say breaking the chain, we want to break the chain of continuity, because when we raise the awareness, people will understand, they will understand what the disease is all about. And by doing so, we'll break the chain in continuity of this disease. By breaking the chain, we'll break the chain of ignorance, because we're increasing the knowledge of the populace concerning this disease also.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Adeosun, for the explanation. So, the next question would be, so what do we need to know about sickle cell disease, ma'am?
Okay, like I said earlier on, I said sickle cell disease is an inherited disease condition, is not an acquired condition. It's not something that is picked maybe while a child is growing up or picked in school or anything. It's inherited from both parents. We need to know that about sickle cell disease. And we need to know that what we also need to know about sickle cell disease is the red blood cells are in people with hemoglobin AA. Their red blood cell is disc shape, like almost roundish. Let me use that word. And because this red blood cell is disc shape, it makes it very easy for the red blood cells to flow through the vessels of the body so that they can be able to oxygenate all the organs of our body. But in sickle cell disease condition, the red blood cells are sickled in shape. They are crescent, the way the moon appears in the night, that crescent shape. And when they are crescent like that in shape, when they are flowing through the blood vessels, we'll take our blood vessels as the pipeline. All of them, because they are not disc shaped, they are not uniform. They still have they still have the disc shape in them, and but they have more of the sickle red blood cells. So when they are going through that blood vessels, or I would say like a pipe, there will be friction, and everybody is rushing to go through the blood vessels, the capillaries, and before you know it, because they are not uniform in shape, they have some that are disc shaped, some that are crescent like in shape. they tend to block some of these blood vessels. And when they block some of these blood vessels, the oxygen capacity of that blood is reduced to the particular organ that that blood vessel is supplying. And also, if it's in, when we say organ, any organ in the body, and even the joint, and this can lead to some of the crises that our warriors have because of the clogging of the blood vessels. Blood is not moving freely, oxygen is not freely delivered to that particular part or organ of the body, and they can
Body.
present with different type of crisis that can cause them discomfort, cause them pain, and a lot of psychological uh, depression.
All right. Thank you so much for that answer, Ma. All right. So, please, if you have any questions, you can. There's a chat box that you can drop at in. So please, from our viewers, if there's any questions at all you would like to ask us while the webinar is going through, you can please drop that in the chat function so we can take them. All right. So the next question here would be, how can they be prevented? How can sickle cell be prevented? Yes, you said it's inherited and not acquired, but how can it be prevented so people would know the prevention to take or the steps to take to prevent this?
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said earlier on, I said is inherited
Yeah.
from both of our parents, the hemoglobin S.
Yeah.
One S from the father, one S from the mother. We said is not acquired. So prevention is not something like maybe wash your hands very well or wash the fruits you eat so that you will not get this. Prevention mainly is by having knowledge about the disease, one, and also by individuals getting to know their genotype,
Mm.
because that's why we are saying we are breaking the chain of continuity
Sure.
of sickle cell. So we need to know our genotype. What is our genotype? Are we AA? Are we AS? Are we SS? You understand? When we know our genotype, it will guide us in spousal, choosing our spouses, because we need to know our spouse's genotype. That's one way we can prevent sickle cell. Because when we know, okay, if I know I'm SS, I wouldn't want to marry somebody that is AS or somebody that is SS, because I have chance of having a child with
Child.
sickle cell. You understand? So that knowledge is the main key for prevention of sickle cell, knowing our genotype also.
All right. Um, okay, thank you, Doc. So there's a question here from Farouk, which says, my question is, how do we prevent sickle cell nephropathy in a sickle cell patient?
Okay, thank you very much. Sickle cell nephropathy is one of the complications that a warrior can have. And most times, there are a lot of things that can cause this nephropathy in sickle cell
Sickle.
patients. Nephropathy, that we're talking about the kidneys, things that can damage the kidneys, things that can reduce the kidney function. There are a lot of things that can do that. Most time when we see sickle cell patients, we tell them drink a lot of water.
Out of
One,
water.
we don't want them to be dehydrated. Two, we want the red blood cells to be as disc-like shape as possible as it can be, so that at least when the red blood cells are well hydrated and they are disc-like, there will not be any clogging of the blood vessels that can reduce uh, oxygen supply or blood supply to a particular organ.
Yeah.
Sickle cell nephropathy, when oxygen supply, when there's injury to the kidney, a patient can have, a warrior can have a sickle cell nephropathy. When the warrior is dehydrated, the cells are not discoid as they're supposed to be. It can cause that, causing insults to the kidney. When there's abuse of analgesic, There are some analgesics that are not kidney friendly. When there's abuse of these analgesics, sometimes it can cause injury to the kidney. And before you know it, we'll start seeing reduction in their kidney function. And when we start seeing this, because we don't want it to go into nephropathy, good for you to see your doctor. Most time we refer them to nephrologists so that at least we'll see the way we can save or preserve the remaining function of the kidney. Because if they go into nephropathy, it can end up into end stage kidney disease or renal disease that can lead to having dialysis for some of them. So most time we disabuse uh, the frequent use of nephrotoxic drugs, whether antibiotics or analgesic. We encourage them to take a lot of water so that at least the red cells can be well hydrated and there will be no clogging of the vessel and there will be no injury to the kidney. And also we encourage them as much as possible to go on their follow-up visits, because during their follow-up visit, a lot of tests will be done, both kidney and liver function. And once these things are seen, and if they are normal, they can give you maybe after 3 months, after 6 months, you repeat it again, so that at least we'll monitor them. There will be close monitoring, and this nephropathy will not take us by surprise.
All right. Thank you, Doc, for the extensive answer to that. Thank you for doing justice to the question. So the next question I'll be asking now is, what kind of support does a sickle cell patient need?
Mm. A sickle cell patient needs as much support as possible, both spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially. They need love. They need to be encouraged, because the kind of pain they go through, sometimes it leads some of them to depression. It leads some of them to suicidal attempts. We've seen a couple of cases. So we need to show empathy. We shouldn't look at them as they are not fit to do anything. A lot of them are doing great. They are very intelligent people. A lot of them are doing great. I know a lot. I have friends that sickle cell disease, but what they need most, those that are married, they need good and strong spousal support and love. Because anytime they're in crisis, is not by their own doing that they are having this pain or crisis. It's not by their own doing that they came to this world as a sickle cell patient. So they need that support, they need that encouragement, because we don't want them to be depressed at all.
All
And
right.
financially
Thank
too,
you.
as I've said, they need that too.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Adeosun, for the questions that you've been answering. On this webinar series this evening, we have two warriors with us that will be sharing their story and how it's been for them. So we have warrior Ine Akpan with us, and also warrior Mohammed Shale with us this evening. So I would be speaking with Dr. Warrior Ine Akpan now. Good evening. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening,
How you
Dr.
doing?
Adeosun. Good evening, Sola. I'm well,
Good
thank you.
evening.
All right, so welcome to the webinar and thank you for joining us this evening. So I'll just be asking you some questions that I would like you to answer for us. So, in your own term as a warrior, can you please explain or describe what sickle cell is to us?
Okay, thanks for having me. First of all, I'm delighted to be here. What is sickle cell? I think Dr. Adeosun has done justice to the topic, but I mean, since you said to say as a warrior, um, it's a disorder that it's a genetic disorder So that means that it has nothing to do with the person in question. You know how um, it has nothing to do with person in question. Let me just put it that way. It's not the fault of the person in question, because there are cases of warriors who have been accused of wanting to drain their parents' money, of wanting to, who have been sent to deplete the family resources. It has nothing to do with the patient in terms of responsibility. It's not the fault of the patient. It's a genetic disorder, and it affects the blood. But then, of course, the blood is the life of every inside. The blood is the lifeline of every living, well, not living thing, but maybe let's say animal, right,
Mm-hmm.
and human being. So definitely anything that affects the blood affects the life. And so that's why sickle cell kind of affects almost every area, if not every area of a warrior's life.
All right, thank you for that. Can you please share your story with us as a sickle cell? Can you share some of your stories with us? Like, we would like to know what it takes to be a sickle cell warrior, what you go through, and some of the things that you'd like us to know.
Okay, so I'm not sure what my story is, to be frank. But so just let me start with an introduction of myself. My name is Ini Akpan. Yes, I live with sickle cell disorder. I'm the founder of SW Advantage Resources, a ghostwriting and publishing firm. Um, so, what's my sickle cell story? I was diagnosed at the age of 3 after I fell seriously ill, and that's when my parents discovered that I had the HBSS. Right. So of course, I know that Dr. Adeosun mentioned sickle cell, but it's beyond SS. There are also SC and I think beta thalassemia. Semia, please, Dr. Adeosun, correct me.
Yeah,
But
those are sickles. Yes, you're right. You can go on. But there are those we
okay.
call those that have sickle cell traits. You understand? SC, some with sickle cell beta thalassemia. You understand? AS, those are the traits. You understand? That's why we call them sickle cell disease as a whole. But sickle cell anemia, there are those with HBSS, homozygous SS.
Okay.
You can go on in it.
All right. Thank you. So but it's beyond. Even people who are SC, and all of that also have complications, and I've noticed that sometimes it's easy to overlook them. That's why I had to incorporate that into the
Right.
conversation. So my sickle cell story is, there's no one sickle cell story. So if I were to give my own story, I might exclude other people. Sickle cell seems to present differently for different individuals. So, for example, until 2019, I didn't quite have lots of complications with sickle cell. So by lots of complications, I mean frequent hospitalizations, frequent transfusions, and significant change or effects on lifestyle, right? But did it mean it's that I didn't have sickle cell all along? I did, and it affected my lifestyle in different ways, but it was a little more manageable and barely noticeable, right? But for some people, they have lots of attacks. I mean, I went through primary school with excellent attendance. I went through secondary school with I would say, yeah, excellent attendance too, or very good attendance. Very, I went through university with, I think maybe just, um, I think I was hospitalized maybe once, throughout my university.
University.
Uh, Even though I was away from home, I served in Sokoto. I was never hospitalized. I'm saying Sokoto well, sorry, because At the time, I was living in Port Harcourt, so it's very far from home, right? But for some people, it affects they can't leave their homes, they can't leave, comfort of family. Some people are unable to attend school. So the sickle cell story is not a one person story. It's a story of it's a million stories. As many sickle cell warriors as they are across the globe, so are our stories. That's how varied our stories are. Everybody has their own story of how sickle cell affects their life.
All
Do you
right.
want
Um,
me to yeah.
no, that's okay. If that's what you want to share, that's very much okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
no, I don't know
Um,
if you want me to just continue or you have questions you intend to keep asking.
Um, that is okay. Yes, you can just. Thank you for that. So I would like to ask you how do you want the general public, or how do you think the general public can support warriors? How do you want them to support warriors, or what do you think the general public, maybe people around you, can do to support warriors?
I think that the first support that we can give to warriors is to number one, not even bring another warrior into the world. So if we can
Mm,
start from there, the very first thing that we need to do is actually, like you said, break the chain. We don't want any more people living with sickle cell. And it frankly it's difficult to understand, right? I have been guilty of this in the past where I've been like, it's not that bad, but eventually when you wait and you realize that the quality of life for any person living with sickle cell, no matter how fantastic, it's never quite as it's never quite up to par. That's the truth. No matter how fantastic, because sickle cell means that with the average person living with sickle cell. So for females, for instance, your PCV is supposed to be the minimum limit is 35%. But for somebody living with sickle cell, it can be as low as 10%,
mm,
and then the highest I think I've heard is maybe 30%, and that seems like a miracle. Self, like, wow, you have up to 30%.
mm,
Please give me some, So, and when you realize that energy, like Dr. Adeosun said, the blood carries oxygen. Oxygen helps you to function. So, literally, your entire life is limited, and I'm a
mm,
person of faith, but at the end of the day, we also have to say what the reality is. That your entire life is limited. I remember that as a younger person, before I eventually actually understood how sickle cell was affecting my life, my mom would tease me that look at her, an older woman is more active than me, a young girl. And at
mm.
the time I didn't realize, okay, it's sickle cell, but I just thought, okay, maybe I'm lazy.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm lazy. I actually thought for a great part of my life that I was lazy until I realized, okay, hold on. This I'm not actually lazy, but I get more tired when or I'm unable to do more when my PCB is lower.
Mm,
So it's so you I mean when you think about that, you realize that no matter how much money you have, no matter how what quality of medical care you're able to give, the quality of life will always be less, and you don't want to introduce a child to that. So the very first way we can support is to actually break that chain. As much as possible, let us find a way to not bring any more children into the world who have sickle cell anemia. Um, okay, I'm just seeing Evan's question. I think I'll talk about that. Should I answer that
okay.
now or continue
Yes,
with?
you can. You can.
Okay, so the question is, hi, so I just realized that when we talk about SCD crisis, it's intense pain that could last for anything between 3 hours to days. It's quite tough to digest that. How does the pain feel? Okay. First of all, I'm not sure that you can describe sickle cell pain. So pain
Mm,
scale, there's a scale from 0 to 10. 0 is when you don't have any pain, right?
mm-hmm.
But 10 is I've experienced 10, and
Wow. Wow.
I don't want to describe. So when I go to the clinic, And the doctor says, "Oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was your pain scale?" I'm thinking, okay, I've experienced what I never thought possible, so I'm using that now as a benchmark. So I say, okay, maybe 5, and they give me paracetamol, not IV, so just paracetamol tablet, and they say, okay, I'm not sure you understand what is going on. When I say 5, I'm comparing to something I had experienced before. So maybe I should explain better that this pain is intense, right? So what does the pain
Mhm.
feel like? To be honest, there, because there's a scale, right? Sometimes it can be manageable. You could be having pain and still go about your daily activities because, oh well, um you've lived with it for a while, so you're able to
Mhm.
manage, right? And
Mm.
then there's
Yeah.
the pain that where I some just thinking about it self is traumatizing, but I've experienced pain where I was lying on the hospital bed, and if for any reason somebody touched the bed, I would have waves of pain roll up my body
Wow.
from feet to my neck. So and this is just like someone touching the bed. I was in constant pain for at least 4 days before the medication started kicking in, and I could even get relief and start sitting up.
Mm.
So there is that. And how does it feel? Sometimes it feels like there's a hammer inside your bones, that as if you know when you're knocking a building. But instead this time they are knocking inside your bones. So it could, and usually the pain occurs in the joints. So it could
Mm.
be your wrists, your ankles, your knees, your waist, your lower back. Sometimes the chest, when you have acute chest syndrome, just different parts of the body. It's, I don't know, just think of sometimes like a hammer, like someone is, a hammer inside the bone hitting intensely. And I really don't know if there's a way to describe it. It's just crazy pain, sha, where sometimes you can't walk, you can't talk, and then sometimes, like I said, it's manageable. You're able to take pain relief and everything, you get relief. So that's for the pain question. So
All right.
then
Thank
can
you.
I
So
ever
there's another
ask
question.
you more
Yes.
questions about pain? What makes it last for so long? Why can't normal medicine? I think Dr. Adeosun should take this question. Adeosun.
Yes. So Dr.
What
Adeosun, please help us with this question from Evan.
Most time when a patient is experiencing the pain or the crisis, as we call it, there's usually a precipitating or an underlying illness that may bring up the pain. It doesn't just come up on its own like that. Malaria is one of the precipitating, what is it called, illness that can bring up this crisis pain for sickle cell patients. Any form of infection, from upper respiratory tract infection, patient coughing, even urinary tract infection can cause the pain. Any form of infection that or any form of illness that will change the body system, even ordinary gastroenteritis, vomiting and diarrhea. You understand? That's why when sickle cell patient comes to the hospital in pain, we call it vaso-occlusive crisis. We always want to find out if there is fever, is the patient coughing, any pain while passing urine, because we want to rule out all these other systems that might be undergoing some form of illness that can precipitate this vaso-occlusive crisis. And if you don't treat the underlying cause, the pain will last so long. And that's why if we find out, we'll do a lot of tests, we'll do your food blood count, MP, to see if the white cells are increased. From the food blood count, we can see a lot of things also happening in the body of the patient. We'll do the MP to see if you have malaria. And most times, when these conditions are treated, they tend to get better. And we rehydrate. We cannot overemphasize the importance of hydration in sickle cell patients. We hydrate them well. We tell them to take water themselves, at least 3 liters in a day, because we want those red blood cells not to remain sickling as much as possible, so that there will be perfusion of the organs and every other parts of the body. So once the underlying infection or cause is treated, the pain will stop. As a friend, if you have a friend that is in such crisis, the best thing you can do, take the person to the nearest hospital so that a doctor can see and assess and know what is causing and manage the patient and treat the patient, so that patient can go home and feel much better as soon as possible.
Super. All right, thank you, Dr. Adeosun, for that. So we have some more questions from our viewers. So the first question here says, "What are the ways to minimize the crisis of sickle cell patients?"
Okay.
Okay, sorry, before Dr. Adeosun responds, I just want to add to what
Okay.
she said that some of the
Okay.
triggers also are stress. So physical stress,
Yes,
and physical
stress,
stress is not
even
necessarily that
weather.
you've done anything awesome. It just means that your body capacity at that time, it could be just going to the market, taking a stroll,
Mm,
taking a walk rather. It could be any form of physical stress that your body cannot bear at that time. And again,
it's
remember I said that the sickle cell story for different warriors is different.
for
The things
different
there were
people.
things I could do in the past that I can no longer do now. I can no longer take walks, but at the time I hiked. I went hiking, so you can't then compare two warriors and say, but this person went hiking. That same person that went
Making that you
hiking
can go.
in,
Yeah.
in 2018 can no longer
Different
take walk.
stories for different people.
Yeah, yes. So physical stress, emotional stress, even failing an exam at school or pressure, you are facing a major examination is breakfast, romantic breakfast. Okay, so I mean,
You're right.
it could physical stress could also be lack of sleep, and maybe especially when preparing for examinations, it can be
You're right.
tedious, or it could be work stress, any kind of thing that exacts on the body. And then, of course, malnutrition and extreme weather temperatures also. So the person enters the rain, it could lead to
Mm,
crisis.
oh my God.
The person is in a bakery or is in a kitchen, in a hot kitchen, it can trigger crisis. Anemia, maybe for whatever reason, the person's PCB has dropped, could trigger crisis. And sometimes, for no reason at all, it could trigger crisis. Because when you say malaria, for instance, almost every time when I get to the hospital, they treat malaria. But the truth is, if you check other people's MP level, it's probably the same. One plus, you treat,
Mm,
but for healthy adults, you don't treat malaria like that. So it's almost like, because I know that for some people, because I've been in the hospital frequently recently, I overheard somebody, speaking to my mom, saying, but what can she do to prevent this thing? And my mom was like, it can be
mm,
worrisome. And I'm saying this because I know there are probably parents, loved ones here. Well, I think, there's something my sibling, my daughter, my son is not doing right, or my spouse is not doing right. That's why they are going through all of this. But sometimes it can really be nothing, because when you say physical stress, like I said, it can be going to the market. So the last time I visited a friend, I went. It's not like I trekked. I went for house inside car, and I ended up in the hospital the next day. So it's not like I did anything wonderful. Just leaving my
yeah.
house triggered a crisis. So sometimes it's not that the person intentionally fell sick. Crisis can really be triggered by anything and nothing. I just thought to add that, so that we don't start
All
holding
right.
our
No,
breath
that's
like.
Yes,
okay.
thank you very
Yeah,
much
you're
for
you're
that.
right.
Yes.
You're very right, Ini. Stress is one of the things, because sometimes after doing all the tests, the malaria, the full blood count, you try to rule out infection. The next thing is to ask, did you walk from market to to your classroom? You understand? Any form of stress can trigger the crisis. And just like you said, anemia also. So to go back to the question you were about asking, ways to minimize the crisis of sickle cell patients. Uh, to
Patience, yeah.
I will advise, hello, I will
We are here,
advise
ma.
for the patient. Okay, I will advise for the patients to have their regular follow-up visit with an hematologist. You understand? Because take for instance the case of anemia. Like she said earlier on, sickle cell, there's what we call a steady state PCV for them. Their PCV is not the same level as those that have hemoglobin AA. Theirs are usually lower than that. And a sickle cell individual with a PCV of 20%, an adult female, compared to an adult female with hemoglobin AA, the normal PCV for her should be between 35 to 40. At that 20%, a sickle cell patient is stable, may not have any form of pain or any form of ailments at that point. But if a patient that goes to the hospital and gets his count done regularly per follow-up visit, when there is a decline in the steady state, it will bring the attention of the doctor to it to really know what is happening, what is causing this decline, before it will result into something that will now lead to an emergency in cases of maybe a vaso-occlusive crisis. Sometimes they go into anemic heart failure. So our regular clinic follow-up is important also, because when you follow up, you might not even know that there's something happening in your system. But from the tests, the various investigation that you've brought to the clinic, your doctor will be able to see if there's something going on and how he or she can stop it so that it will not progress into an emergency. So I will always advise any sickle cell individual, please always attend your clinic. The clinic may not necessarily be weekly, depending on how the individual is faring. Most time they can give you 3 monthly, bi-monthly, or monthly, but it's not something that frequent. Once you are stable, nobody will want to stress you to be coming every time to see a doctor, but an appointment will definitely be given for your next visit. So we should try as much as possible keep up with follow-up visits with our specialist. And also, I had said earlier on the place of hydration. We need to drink water during harmattan, during dry season. We drink a lot of water. This will rehydrate our system. It will help our blood cells also not to be dehydrated. When they are dehydrated, the sickling can be more pronounced and they can clog the vessels and also cause more pain and injury to various organs of the body. We should take routine medication, because actually sickle cell patients, as part of the sickle cell, there are routine medications that they are placed on: folic acid and paludrin for malaria prevention. That's the paludrin. Folic acid for our red blood cells. You understand? All these they should keep to it and take it. It helps in a lot of way. There are some that they place on hydroxyurea, and this also is to help the cells to retain more fluid, so that it will not be that sickle again that will cause um, clogging of the vessel. It will also help the what we call the fetal hemoglobin. It will reduce the percentage of the sickle cell window and raise the fetal hemoglobin, which will help also to reduce anemia in them. So we should be regular with this. This will minimize crisis. Extreme weathers, as she said, can cause crisis in most patients. When it's cold, we should try and keep warm. When the mosquitoes are many, we should try to use a mosquito net. No, prevention is the main stay here. Prevent ourselves from cold, prevent from extreme heat as much as possible. We should not stress ourselves too much, although stress is something sometimes that we cannot do without, whether in the office or at school. You are preparing for an exam. We have a lot of our patients like that during exam. They come down with crisis, and it's disheartening because you see them crying, talking, "Ah, I'm missing my exam." But as much as possible, we try for them not to miss their exam, even if it's to take analgesic every 2 hours for them to write the exam and come back to the hospital uh, after the exam for proper care. So we try as much as possible to reduce this. This also will reduce and minimize the crisis frequency in most sickle cell individual. Um, I think that's about ways to
Ways to
minimize
minimize
the
crisis.
crisis in sickle cell. Then
All
treatment
right.
aspects. There's a question I'm seeing here. Treatment
Yes, the
aspect of
treatment.
sickle cell disease. Well, for treatments, for sickle cell, even though I didn't talk much about it, it's not only the vaso-occlusive crisis they have other crises that they can have. They can have the uh, um, hemolytic, hyperhemolytic crisis. That's in this case, their red cells is being broken down, and a lot of things can cause this, even from malaria to infection. You understand? There are lots of things that can cause the red cells. So most of the crises that our sicklers have, there are different treatments approach for them. Vaso-occlusive will give them analgesic, with various forms of analgesic that will not be injurious to their body. You understand? So that it will minimize, will rehydrate them. That's most of the things they do in the hospital. They treat for malaria. Yes, we treat most time for malaria, for sickle cell. You think, oh, this treatment is too much, but because we don't want, even if it's 1 plus, we still treat because we don't want anything that will trigger any form of crisis in our patients. A patient with anemic heart failure will give blood. You understand? Some of them come with complications. There are different complications from every organ, from the head down to the toes. Complication can happen in most of our sickle cell patients, from stroke to retinopathy to cardiomyopathy to acute chest syndrome. They can have pulmonary hypertension. They sound medical terms a lot, but most of the time, when they have all these complications, we tend to refer them to their specialists because they are specialists for heart, specialists for nephropathy, which is for the kidney, specialists for liver. Sometimes some will have complication of sickle cell hepatopathy. And most time when we see patients with sickle cell hepatopathy, there are a lot of patients that takes a lot of herbal formulations, which they are always injurious to the liver. Even if somebody has taken it before and did not have any form of complication, our body systems are different. For the fact that somebody took it and the person did well, my own body system might not take the quantity or that particular herbs that the person has taken and might affect me, in a bad way. So we advised they should not take herbal formulations because we've seen a lot of sickle cell hepatopathy affecting the liver. You understand, which we may have to refer to a gastroenterologist to help manage. Those that have ulcer is very common. Leg ulcer in sickle cell, all of them is always due to reduced oxygen to that particular part of the body. You understand? So we refer to uh, bones and plastic. So treatment and management of sickle cell patients is multidisciplinary, not just for the hematologist, is multidisciplinary for treatment and management, depending on what the patient is presenting with. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank
Please,
you, Dr.
please can
Adeosun.
I add something to that? What she just said about medication. I mean, from a warrior perspective, because I've seen quite a lot. I don't. I'm hoping that maybe caregivers, parents. This is mostly directed at them. It's painful to watch your, I don't know, your spouse, your sibling, your child go through sickle cell, even if it's just a neighbor, it affects everybody.
Mhm.
But the one thing that you don't want to do is to worsen the condition, because, like Dr. Adeosun said, she talked about liver. There are a lot of medications in the market that are touted to help. So this is today is this, tomorrow is that. There are so many, and they keep insisting, oh, I know the thing helped one warrior, this testimony, the person, this is how the person looks, this is how the person looks now. It's not that it's bad. I mean, these medications, like you said, different people, and like I've also said at least once, that different people are in different stages. The things
Mhm.
that may be affecting one person may not be affecting the other person. Yes, anemia is a common factor, but it presents differently. The complications and symptoms prevent differently for different people. So yes, the medication may actually work for one person, but this your child or spouse or whoever may react to it, and we need to be willing to say, let's talk to the hematologist first, and let's talk to another hematologist, and let's talk to another warrior, and let's actually find. And one thing I've noticed with all of these medications is they don't actually contain enough information about side effects, about composition. So you don't even know what is inside. You only know that they told you that it works, and that it worked for Nkechi, and it worked for Okon, and it worked for Bisola, and it worked. Sorry, Bisola.
No problem.
It works for all these people, but it may not work for you. So I don't know. Let's be very careful, because you may be gone. Because it's usually the battle. It's my body. I can drink it now, but I don't know the effect 10 years from now. And you may be gone, but we won't even be able to link that is this thing you gave me to drink that is causing it. So please, let's focus on what we know.
All right. Thank you very much for that information. So we have Warrior Bashir here with us. So we'll just be asking
Oh,
him
sorry, name
a
is Bashir.
question. Yes, please, can you hear us?
That's where I
We'd
got the
like
name.
to know if you
Sorry.
can hear us. Hello, Bashiru. Are you here with us? Can you hear us? Your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
I
Yes.
can hear you. Can you hear me,
All
please?
right. Yes. Thank you for joining us this
Okay.
evening.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So, as a warrior, I would like to ask you a question. Has there ever been a time when you felt different from other people or you were being stigmatized as a sickle cell warrior?
Oh, of course. You see, as a sickle cell warrior, due to the lifetime featuring disorder, you may once in a life journey, you may think of that you are like, of course, like you are different. Maybe you are created just to be so fast. I don't know how to put it. Understand? So we. Suffer the load, you see a lot in terms of coping with pain and all of that. Then you be asking yourself and your family, you even see some stigmatization within your friend that you are different, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. Please, of course, I have once go through such intimidations.
All right. So thank you very much for that. Okay, I think his network is a bit bad. So please would like yeah, our warrior Miss Ini to please say something to our younger warriors that may be listening to us, like a word of encouragement or whatever what you would like to say to them, to younger warriors.
Uh, what do I want to say to younger mothers? Okay, number one, sickle cell is going to affect your life. As long as you live with the disorder, it's going to affect your life. So what you want to do is to avoid being a victim. You want to, as much as possible, take control of your life. And by that I mean you want to be able to plan your career path, knowing fully well that these are the limitations you are going to face. So I've talked about the fact that with reduced PCV, for instance, you are definitely more likely to be easily fatigued, no matter how healthy you are. um, there'll be different limitations. So the one thing you want to do is to be able to plan your career path. You don't want to be so chart your career. And when I'm talking to younger people now, I'm assuming maybe people in their 20s and below. You still have, and of course this applies to every age if you've not done it, but it's easier when you are younger. Decide on a career path. Of course, we know that these things are flexible, but be intentional. I think that be intentional about your career path. Understand what your limitations are. You are definitely not going to go get a job as a pilot, for instance. I'm not saying warriors can't fly, but I know that it can be quite tedious if you're in the air manning a plane for 8 hours. So what kind of career path is going to accommodate the lifestyle changes that you would have to adapt? So chart your career path, be very intentional about it as much as you can, because I've spoken with older warriors, and it turns out that what they told us, when you're 18, everything goes and you become fine. It doesn't seem to work like that. What it means is that you want to be able to ensure that sickle cell does not make you a liability. So that's what being intentional about your career path will do for you. Do you just acquire the skills that you can right now, and be intentional about building a career that is sustainable for you, where you don't limit your options to taking an office job, for instance, because if you are doing that, then you take it in a climb where you know that you can get sick leave and still be paid, because sickle cell is expensive. It's very, very, very,
Expensive.
very expensive. So, um, one thing you can do is to go back to your, well, except if you're a trust fund baby. Please, if you're a trust fund baby, come and share money with me, right? Except you're a trust fund baby, your parents are definitely not going to say, "Oh, wow, now you're 50, but I mean, it's my fault that you live with sickle cell, so I have all of this money stacked up for your medication." It's very unlikely that's going to happen. So you want to, as much as possible, create, be intentional about creating a career that will give you a lot of income to accommodate all of these expenses, and that will give you a lot of flexibility, so that even if you're out of work for 3 months, you don't suffer for it. You don't lose your source of income. You can always come back and continue from where you stopped. I think that's the major. And then marriage. As young people, we are very, marriage is a hot topic when you're very young. And when you're young, it's a hot topic for everybody at every stage age, right? But for younger people, that's when you're likely making decisions about whom to marry. To be honest, I'll be the very first to say you don't have to marry somebody that is AA. The reason I say this is, we should be willing as a society to accept the fact that having a child is not compulsory. So, and the second reason I say this is because this AA thing, I'm looking for someone that is AA, can put you under so much pressure. You end up marrying an abuser, you end up marrying a narcissist, you end up marrying, let's just leave it there, because you were looking for AA at all costs and by all means. So you don't want to limit your options. If the person that is best for you is AS, can you people agree on having an hysterectomy so there's no mistake or something, and agree that there is no child, we are not having a child in this relationship, and just so you choose, I don't know, for your sanity. But if you must marry, don't let pressure. Don't marry the person that will send you to an early grave. I think that's just it. Let's be very flexible about the concept of marriage, because I see that marriage is one thing that can really destroy the lives of warriors. I'm not against marriage, please. I'm not against marriage. I'm just saying be very flexible around the concept, so that you have more options, and the more options you have, the better you are able to make smarter choices. You are not under pressure. You don't have to marry at 25. It is not a, be patient enough to find a person that would accommodate all of these issues, because sickle cell has problems. So you don't want the person that will live in the hospital. I rest my case.
All right. So thank you very much for that. So we got a question now. But before we proceed to the question we just got from one of our viewers right now, I would just like to tell us once more that this webinar was brought to us by Complete Care. Complete Care is a digital health marketplace that connects patients with doctors and other healthcare professionals within the shortest time possible. So Complete Care is your sure health blog for convenient, affordable, and quality health care always. So now I will just go to the question we got from one of our viewers right now. So Dr. Adeosun, please. So he says, in what situation is exchange blood transfusion applied instead of the normal blood transfusion, and what are the side effects of exchange blood transfusion?
Okay. Thank you, Modupe. Exchange blood transfusion. This is a procedure whereby we take out blood from sickle cell patients and we replace it with blood which is genotype AA. Most time we do exchange blood transfusion when there are complications, you understand, of sickle cell. A patient maybe with acute chest syndrome, we do exchange. A patient with incalcitrant pain, patient is just having pain despite all analgesic, despite rehydration, despite removing every factors that may be causing this pain. We do exchange blood transfusion for them. A patient that may be going for surgery, a major surgery, we do exchange blood transfusion. Why do we do this exchange blood transfusion? We said it's an exchange. We want to reduce the amount of hemoglobin SS in that particular patient and dilute it with hemoglobin AA. That's why when we do an exchange blood transfusion, we always ask that they provide a genotype AA blood because we don't want any complication again to arise, whether intra or post surgery. And why we are doing exchange blood transfusion for a patient with complication is because most time the level of the hemoglobin SS in that person's blood might be so high, some might be even as high more than 80%. And how do we get to know the level of this blood? We do an investigation which is we call high performance liquid chromatography to break down all the levels of hemoglobin in that particular patient's blood, and it will show us the percentage. And most times sickle cell patient with complication, even some of them without complication, sure, they'll still get above 80%. So when they present with complication and they have 70, 80, we want to bring down that percentage of that hemoglobin S to 30, so that at least you understand they will not go into any form of complication again, whether during surgery or uh, after they finish the surgery. So that's why we do an exchange blood transfusion. When a patient needs just normal transfusion, we transfuse normally. If there's no indication, there are indications for exchange blood, which I've mentioned. The so many um, complication. Acute chest syndrome is one of the complication. A male that may be having priapism is an indication for exchange blood transfusion. In calcitrant pain, just a severe persistent vaso-occlusive pain, we'll do an exchange blood transfusion. For someone going into surgery, we do an exchange. Maybe the person had a fracture, or maybe going to for an abdominal surgery, we do an exchange blood transfusion because surgery is a form of stress. When they come out of this surgery, we don't want them to go into any form of vaso-occlusive crisis because of the increased percentage of sickle hemoglobin that they may have. So we need to dilute it and bring it to the barest minimum. For exchange blood transfusion, I would say one, for that particular exchange, we normally calculate. There is a formula we use to calculate to know how many exchange a patient will need, so that we will not over we not how will I put it, we'll give the accurate number, we'll do the accurate exchange, and we will not over transfuse the patient, because when you over transfuse a patient, there are so many complications that might come with it, maybe with even like circulatory overload or cardiac overload, or a patient that has had frequent transfusion in the past, and we now do an exchange that is even more than what is supposed to be. Sickle cell patients are prone to iron overload, which is which could be a complication of numerous transfusion that the patient might have. But for complication, I wouldn't really say much. I wouldn't really say there's any side effect. So far, what is calculated and the patient at that particular time is fit for the exchange is more of a beneficial procedure to the patient for the exchange blood transfusion, more of a beneficial procedure for the patient. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Adeosun, for that. So we'll just take a short commercial break of just a minute now to show you a short clip.
Have you ever visited a hospital and spent more than 30 minutes waiting to obtain a hospital card? After obtaining the card, wait another 30 minutes to see a doctor. How did these waits make you feel? What if I told you could consult your doctor on your mobile device for non-life-threatening conditions anytime, anywhere? Wouldn't that be great? How, you ask? By registering at www.CompleteCare.com. This registration is free and simple. You not only get to consult a doctor on your mobile device, but can book appointments to see your doctor at the hospital. Better still, you could have your doctor visit you at home. Isn't that wonderful? Enter your details here and experience the easiest and fastest access to a doctor or hospital. Do you know that this reduces the cost of you consulting medical experts and the logistics of doing so by 30 to 70%? Do you know that this reduces the time you spend in hospital to the barest minimum and gives you time to attend to other things? Do you know that you can pay online when you need medical care and enjoy the best of medical care from qualified medical doctors from anywhere and anytime? Hurry now and register and benefit from cutting-edge healthcare revolution in Nigeria.
All right. So thank you very much to our viewers. Thank you to our guest. Thank you, Dr. Adeosun, for joining us this evening and for the extensive answers to all our questions and for enlightening us more on what sickle cell is and how we can help people and the warriors with this. And thank you to our warriors. Thank you, Warrior Ini, and thank you, Bashir, also for joining us this evening. And thank you for speaking to us and sharing your story um, today to celebrate the World Sickle Cell Day with the theme Breaking the Chain. We do appreciate you. So we'll be bringing the webinar to a close now, but I would just like to say some few points that was gotten through the webinar this evening. So sickle cell anemia is not acquired, it's inherited. So we should do our best to create awareness, to let people know what sickle cell is about, so we can avoid it. Like we just said, it's inherited and not acquired. So for every one of us to go to know her genotype, knowing her genotype is the easiest way for us to know, okay, what to avoid and how we can go about this to prevent us bringing more children to the world with sickle cell anemia. So please, we should be enlightening and we should know to do our best to check our genotype. We should all check our genotype to do better and not to bring more children into the world sickle cell anemia. So thank you very much once again to our viewers. Thank you, Dr. Adeosun. Thank you to our warriors for joining us this evening. and we'll be bringing this webinar to a close now. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
You're
you very much
welcome.
for having me. I'm so
You're
pleased. Thank you.
welcome, Doctor. You're welcome, Doctor. So thank you, our viewers, once more. So we see you next time on our Complete Care webinar series. So bye for now.
Have you ever visited a hospital and spent more than 30 minutes waiting to obtain a hospital card? After obtaining the card, wait another 30 minutes to see a doctor. How did these waits make you feel? What if I told you you could consult your doctor on your mobile device for non-life-threatening conditions anytime, anywhere? Wouldn't that be great? How, you ask? By registering at www.CompleteCare.com. This registration is free and simple. You not only get to consult a doctor on your mobile device, but can book appointments to see your doctor at the hospital. Better still, you could have your doctor visit you at home. Isn't that wonderful? Enter your details here and experience the easiest and fastest access to a doctor or hospital. Do you know that this reduces the cost of you consulting medical experts and the logistics of doing so by 30 to 70%? Do you know that this reduces the time you spend in hospital to the barest minimum and gives you time to attend to other things? Do you know that you can pay online when you need medical care and enjoy the best of medical care from qualified medical doctors from anywhere and anytime? Hurry now and register and benefit from cutting-edge healthcare revolution in Nigeria.